Okay, so today I'm going to show you a really simple colour change technique or colour work technique. Colour work can be quite time consuming and quite complicated for other techniques, but this one you won't need to cut your yarn and you can use 3 different colours and you'll get just a simple colour work pattern going on. So once you've learnt this, there will be a pattern on the way for a beanie hat if you want to have a go at putting your newfound skills into practice. Right, so you need to start with multiples of 2 plus 1 for your turning chain. So I've done 21. So unusually in this technique, we are going to count that turning chain as a stitch. You don't often do that with single crochet, but we are going to do this time. So we're going to find the second chain. So we're going to skip 2 chains, the third chain from the hook. I'm going to go in there and make a single crochet. Okay, we're going to do that all the way along. Okay, when you get to the last chain stitch, don't finish off the single crochet. Stop when you've got 2 loops on your hook, and then you can join in your new colour, which I'm going to use this blue. So we're going to just pull that through and then tighten it up by pulling down on that yellow yarn. And then what I like to do is just tie the 2 tails together to secure them. Bit fiddly, especially when you're filming. Okay, it doesn't have to be too tight. Right, so now we're ready to carry on with our blue. So we've got a blue loop as the last part of that last stitch, and we're going to make 1 chain. So this is going to count as a stitch when we come back on the next row. But for now, we're going to skip that first stitch at the base of that 1 chain, and we're going to do a single crochet into the next stitch as you normally would. Now the next stitch, we're actually going to go into the chain. So we've skipped that one, we've worked into that one. So there's the next chain. So we're going to do it as if we're working into the chain again. So we're going to go into the chain, probably going to be fiddly. This row is always fiddly because chains are tight. Once we get onto the rows that are all single crochet rows, it's going to become a lot easier. Right, so you can see I've gone back down right into that chain row now. So I'm just doing a single crochet, but obviously don't pull too tight because you do want that spike to show. So we see there we've got a short single crochet and we've got a long single crochet going right the way down into that first chain row to make the spike effect. So you simply just alternate now between a single crochet in an ordinary stitch and a single crochet into the chain. Okay, do 2 more, but I won't bore you with the whole row because I think you'll understand what to do, and I'll show you what to do when we get to the last stitch. So that's an ordinary single crochet into that stitch as you would normally do. Then we're going right down back into that chain, which is fiddly, 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 and then letting that spike become nice and long and loose. So you'll see already we've got a little bit of a pattern going on there. Just one thing to point out when you're working into that bottom row, once you've put your single crochet into that stitch, like so, make sure you don't then work into this single crochet that sits above that chain, because then you'll end up with too many stitches. So because we've worked into that chain there, we can skip this one. And if you level off your work, you'll see that that spike stitch encases that single crochet anyway, so that the next natural one to work into is this. So if you're worried about that and you're not sure you've got it right, as long as you've still got 20 stitches once you've worked into the end chain, you've got it right. And when you look at the bottom row, as long as you can see there's a chain that's not worked into, then one that is, one that's not, one that is, one that's not, then you know you'll know you've got that right. Okay, so we're going to do our last spike stitch into that bottom chain. Now that can be quite elusive, that last chain, so you might be thinking, oh, there isn't another one, but there is that loop if you just pull it out. Okay, so I'm going to go into there, make that spike stitch, and our last stitch should always be a single crochet, so that's another indicator if you've got it right. And unusually we're going to work into that little loop that was the turning loop from the very first chain row. Okay, so remember, go into that, it's usually pretty tight, so you'll know you've got it right, and then yarn over, pull through until you've got 2 loops on hook, leave it at that point to get your next colour. And as with all single crochet designs, it seems to twist away until you get a good decent amount going, especially when you're starting from a chain. With the beanie hat, we're going to start from a brim, so we won't need to work into chain with the spike stitch, which would be good. Right, so I'm going to put in this light blue now, same as we did before, so just pull a loop through the new colour, and then slightly fiddly, just tighten up that blue, and then just tie, even though this isn't a tail, just tie, because we're going to keep that blue going, the new yarn on there. So obviously each time we change colour now, well, this is the last colour change, we're not going to cut it off, we're going to let it stay on. It can be a bit tricky, sort of negotiating all your different balls of yarn, as long as you make sure the yarn you're using at the moment is on top. I think that'll become clear once you come to do it. As long as it's the top ball and it's free of all the others. I recommend doing anything like this on a table. If you try and do it on a settee or on a chair with your yarn in a yarn bowl, I think you're going to get quite tangled. So yeah, try and lay it out on a table when you're doing this. Right, so now I've tied in that new colour. I'm going to make 1 chain, which again will be worked into each time. So I'm going to turn that work now. So just the same as the last row, we're going to go skip that one and we're going to go into that first stitch. Now there's a good tip for you. A spike stitch looks like a very long V, and obviously you'll know that a single crochet has a short V. Long V, short V, long V, short V. So one thing to look out for now, I'm going to skip that one. Whenever you're working single crochet into that last row, it's going to be into the spike stitch. Whenever you're working the spike stitch, it's going to be under the ordinary single crochet. So into that yellow row where you can see that that single crochet is sitting, that's your spike stitch row. So once we're getting into rows instead of chain, it becomes a lot more straightforward to see where to go. So now we can see there's another long V. So we need to do an ordinary single crochet in there. There's a short one, so we're going to go spike stitch underneath where that last single crochet was made, and so on and so on. And you can see the pattern starting to emerge. So I'll do a couple more. Long V, ordinary single crochet, short V, spike stitch. Okay, long V, ordinary, short V, spike stitch. And that is our 3 colours done. So I'll finish off this row, and I'll do a few more rows as well just to get your head around it. But that is it. So it's going to look really pretty when it's done. And then once the hat pattern's ready, I'm going to release that, and if you want to buy that, that's great, and give it a go. Thank you. Just remember one thing, don't pull too tight when you're changing colour. It's tempting to make it really secure, but it can bunch up the edge of your work, so just try and keep it slightly loose, but not so loose it's coming apart. Okay, and we'll go again. So then we're going to work into that one on the next row, so on and so forth. So there's our deep V, single crochet, short V, spike stitch. Just to let you know what I've used for this as well, I've used a 5mm hook and a DK yarn, because I feel if it's slightly looser, it looks nicer. And because you're wrapping over a lot of yarn over previous row, it ends up quite dense. So you don't want it to be so thick and chunky that you can only make certain things from it.